Somewhere in the dungeon, the ground trembled violently as ice and fire magic collided before me. A colossal dragon loomed ahead, the most fearsome boss in this dungeon. I was trying to bring it down by myself, but as a mage, I was far too weak to face such a powerful enemy alone. Even my strongest spells barely left a scratch on its scales. Fear surged through me, and in the next instant, the dragon's claw struck, sending me flying. My staff slipped from my grip. This couldn't be happening. I was supposed to be the greatest mage alive, yet here I was, on the verge of death. I hit the ground with a bone-jarring thud, every inch of my body screaming in pain. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching. When I looked up, I saw my companions, Jejia and Zihue, my lover and my best friend. But as Zihue's arm wrapped around Jejia's waist, my mind went numb. I didn't dwell on it, though, and quickly called for their help. But they didn't move. They just stood there, staring at me like I was some sort of joke. Why were their faces so cold? Jejia walked over, slowly taking my hand, and in one swift motion, removed my storage ring. She mentioned, with an almost nonchalant tone, that she never expected me to actually come for the Pisces amulet. Her voice was calm, as though what she was doing was completely natural. She even called me a good man who had always given her everything she wanted. Before I could react, she slipped the ring off my finger, adding that this way, she wouldn't forget my kindness. What did she mean by that? Why was she saying this? I reached out to grab her, but the next moment, they started embracing and started kissing. Right in front of me, Jejia's hands roamed all over her. I couldn't believe my eyes. This had all been a setup, a plan to get rid of me. That's why we brought you here, they said. My heart sank. I had trusted them like family, and now they had betrayed me. My life was slipping away, my heartbeat slowing as everything turned to darkness. I thought I was dead. But then, a strange warmth began to radiate from my chest. The Pisces amulet slowly emerged from within me. Ring, ring, ring. I was suddenly jarred awake by the shrill blaring of my alarm clock. Without thinking, I slammed it off and rubbed my aching head. As I opened my eyes, the room felt strangely familiar. Wait, wasn't this my college dorm? Hadn't I just died at the hands of a dungeon boss? I quickly noticed my storage ring, along with all my elixirs and treasures, were gone. The TV in the corner showed the date, August 7th, 2040. Could it be? Had I somehow been sent back to the day before the game's launch? 10 years ago? I forced myself to stay calm and figure things out. I remembered a rumor about the game, 8 Wastelands, that claimed the Pisces amulet could grant a revival. It had to be the amulet that saved me. But my relief was short-lived, quickly replaced by fury. At least I hadn't stored the amulet in my ring. Those traitors would have taken it for sure. Now that I had this second chance, I wasn't going to waste it. I stood up, got dressed, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. Cold determination stared back at me. I had just gone through the most soul-crushing moment of my life. The woman I loved for a decade had betrayed me with my best friend, scheming to steal my treasures and ultimately lead me to my death. But now that fate had given me another shot, I was going to make sure they felt every ounce of pain they had put me through. Suddenly, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Crazy Girl. A smile tugged at my lips as I answered. Long time no see, I greeted her. But her youthful voice on the other end sounded confused. She reminded me that we had just had hot pot together the day before. Despite the awkwardness in her voice, she sounded like she had worked up the courage to call me. She said there was something important she had to tell me, and that I should brace myself. I knew exactly what she was going to say in my past life. This same day 10 years ago, she had called to tell me she saw Guajia kissing another man. Back then, I didn't believe her, and it led to a fight that ended our friendship. But hearing her voice now was comforting. I apologized for how I had acted before. Surprised, she asked why I was acting so strangely today. I laughed it off, and suddenly heard a loud thud from her end. Probably her dropping a dumbbell. She sounded concerned and insisted she wasn't joking about Guajia. This time, though, I was calm. I interrupted her and told her I believed her, but that I had something more important to share. She grew even more worried, thinking I was on the edge of something bad. I asked her if she had heard about the game 8 Wastelands. She had. It was being advertised everywhere. I told her I was planning to go all in on becoming a full-time player. What she didn't know was that 8 Wastelands wasn't just a game. In 5 years, it would merge with reality and everything within the game. Abilities, artifacts, even NPCs, would become real. Hearing this, she was shocked. But knowing my past accomplishments in gaming, she believed I could make a name for myself in 8 Wastelands. And this time, I was ready for the future that awaited. I decided to leave the dorm and rent my own place so I could fully dive into the game. She was glad to hear that I wasn't feeling down and had found a new focus in life, which brought her some relief. We talked a bit longer, but then a thought hit me, and I quickly asked her not to hang up. Over the past few years, I had spent all my money on Guajia, and now needed to buy gear for the game. With no other option, I had to ask her for a loan. She got upset, scolding me for wasting so much cash on an expensive gift for Guajia's birthday just the day before to show off. With a frustrated huff, she hung up on me. The more I thought about it, the more irritated I became. Why couldn't I have been reborn just one day sooner? Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a notification for a money transfer and a voice message from her. She had sent me 10,000 yuan, joking that it was supposed to cover her gym fees for a few years. She warned me that if she couldn't hit the gym, she'd take out her frustration on me. I laughed and promised to repay her. A few hours later, as midnight approached, I lay in bed finalizing my preparations. Suddenly, the ring on my finger lit up with a bright red glow, scanning me before binding itself to me. A window popped up announcing that the global beta test of 8 Wastelands had begun. Once again, I found myself in the virtual world. After 10 years, I was back where it all started. Before me stood a majestic palace, and in the air floated a radiant woman glowing with golden light. Everyone's eyes were locked on her, mesmerized. They didn't realize it, but I knew. This was the goddess, a cosmic-level AI, and this marked the first stage of the game. It seemed straightforward, but it required a cautious approach. Some players were whistling and making crude comments, trying to get her attention. I rolled my eyes at their foolishness. Moments later, those disrespectful players were swiftly punished, sucked into a vortex. The others were baffled by what had happened, but I knew the truth. Any player who disrespected the goddess faced severe consequences, ranging from temporary imprisonment to permanent stat reduction. With a sincere heart, I made my way toward her, bowing respectfully. The goddess gazed at me with a serene, approving look. "You seem like a decent mortal," she said. "Do you truly wish to walk the path of cultivation?" Without a second thought, I asked her to grant me a special talent. In an instant, her fingertip pointed in my direction, and a radiant golden light enveloped me. I couldn't help but think about the worthless talent I had in my previous life. It just gave me a 10% discount on items. Pretty useless. I wondered if I'd get something equally unimpressive this time. Still, I knew that an innate talent wasn't everything. Even a rough start could be turned into something great with my knowledge of the 8 wastelands. Suddenly, a beam of light shone behind me, and a window popped up in front of me. Innate talent acquired, defy fate. I was speechless. This talent was nothing like what I had in my past life. It had 3 key effects. First, each time I died, my innate attributes would decrease by 10%. Second, breaking through to a new realm would double all attribute rewards. And third, each breakthrough would bring an unavoidable tribulation. Failure meant the destruction of my soul. I couldn't believe it. This talent was insanely powerful, despite the risks. But, with great power comes great responsibility. If I wasn't willing to face these dangers, my reincarnation would be pointless. The talent has been granted, the goddess said. Now, you need to choose your appearance. A screen appeared, showing various hairstyles and features, just like character creation in an online game. These basic models also came with different attribute bonuses. I scrolled through them quickly, settling on the one with the highest charisma. Unlike my past life, where I had purposely chosen an unattractive look for fun, I now knew that having high charisma made it easier to gain favor with NPCs, which made quests and building relationships way less of a hassle. Next, the goddess asked me to pick my starting region. A map appeared, divided into 4 areas, each one catering to a different profession. Mage, healer, sword cultivator, and body cultivator. I paused for a moment and opened my personal stats. Innate talent set the upper limits for sword and body cultivators, while spirit was the key stat for mages and healers. The most crucial stat, however, was perception. It determined how easily I could learn rare, powerful skills. Charisma came next in importance. None of that mattered too much, though, because all my base stats were maxed out. After reviewing them, I felt an intense surge of determination. If I chose to be a mage again, there was no doubt I'd become the best in the world. Though mages possessed impressive power, their major flaw was evident. They struggled in one-on-one combat. Initially, I had chosen to be a mage because of Guojia, but this time, I was determined to live for myself. I selected Musian as my starting point, a land famed for its sword cultivators. This time, I would forge my own destiny. As a golden light engulfed me, my body faded away, and in an instant, I found myself standing in the newbie village of Musian province. The village was alive with activity. New players filled the streets. Some held signs asking for help, others were already searching for in-game girlfriends, and many stood around marveling at how lifelike the game world felt. The crowd was just as energetic as I remembered. Before long, an old man appeared, and instantly, players rushed toward him. Clearly, the quest-giving NPC. Some players were sporting wild character designs, with a few going for the Super Saiyan look, while others chose heads resembling tomatoes and pumpkins. I was confident they'd regret their decisions soon enough, but for now, that was none of my concern. While watching the commotion, I chose to do things differently. Rather than follow the herd, I turned and walked in the opposite direction. Soon after, it became clear that the NPCs weren't handing out quests as expected, causing confusion among the players. Suddenly, a woman's voice called from behind, asking me to wait. I turned to see a lady who introduced herself as Lady Chui, the owner of the village's tailor shop. She asked if I was interested in taking on a quest. The crowd around me was stunned, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. An NPC had actually approached me. Some even thought I must be an NPC myself, given my apparently striking good looks. Lady Chui stepped closer, explaining that her husband had passed away 5 years ago, and she'd been single ever since. She even offered to help me if the quest proved too difficult. Was this the result of my maxed out charisma stat? It seemed I could charm NPCs without any effort. If I wanted, I could probably strike up a relationship with this attractive widow, but I quickly dismissed the thought. Despite her eager offer, I politely declined, mentioning that I had more pressing tasks today and promised to return for the quest another time. Lady Chui seemed a bit disappointed but didn't push further. Meanwhile, the other players looked even more envious. I still had an important location to find in the newbie village, and after a short search, I finally located the blacksmith shop. As I neared the blacksmith shop, a player mentioned that there was a blacksmith inside who was notorious for not uttering a single word. I nodded in thanks and told him I was just browsing. Inside, several players were unsuccessfully trying to engage the blacksmith, a brawny man tirelessly hammering away at an unfinished weapon. Seeing no response from him, they eventually gave up and left. The blacksmith muttered to himself, "Why isn't this weapon taking shape today?" Without speaking, I stepped closer and examined the furnace. Sensing the issue, I grabbed the bellows and began pumping. Instantly, the flames roared, and the heat in the room spiked. I knew this blacksmith was a crucial NPC in the newbie village, and sure enough, the temperature had been too low for proper forging. "That's it, the fire wasn't strong enough," the blacksmith said as he continued hammering away. We didn't exchange any more words. He focused on forging, and I kept the flames burning. Moments later, the smoke cleared, and the blacksmith triumphantly lifted the now fully formed weapon. "Finally, it's done," he exclaimed. He turned to me and expressed his gratitude, explaining that his apprentice was away, and he had no one to help maintain the furnace. He then pointed to a collection of weapons behind him, saying, "Choose one. You can borrow it for a day, but you'll need to return it afterward." While some new players might have considered this a meager reward, I knew there was more to come. I chose a basic iron sword. The blacksmith chuckled and added, "If you bring me 10 pairs of venomous fangs from the bamboo snakes by the end of the day, I'll offer you something special." With the quest accepted, I left the shop. Seeing the weapon in my hand, other players looked bewildered. Many asked how I had acquired it, so I pointed to the shop and joked, "Oh, just serenade the blacksmith with a love song, and he'll give you a weapon." To my surprise, many believed me and rushed inside, belting out love ballads to the blacksmith. Amused, I shook my head and carried on with my day. Meanwhile, inside the shop, the blacksmith trembled in frustration, muttering, "Get the hell out of here." But most players assumed it was part of the game's storyline until, in one swift motion, the blacksmith swung his hammer, ejecting the entire group. By then, I had already made my way to the bamboo forest. If you looked closely, you could see green snakes coiled around the bamboo branches. One snake leaped at me, but I quickly struck it down with a smooth combo, easily dispatching it and earning a few experience points. I continued cutting through several more snakes, collecting various items as I went. Surprisingly, despite my prior experience with the game, where drop rates for gear in 8 wastelands were notoriously low, these low-level snakes were dropping a decent amount of equipment. Could it be tied to my maxed-out luck attribute? Regardless, I pressed on with my quest.